What was the most pain you've ever experienced? Broke both my arms at the same time. Broke my left arm twice again after that, with hardware already in it. Cut my thumb to the bone, through a tendon. Broke fingers in my hand. Nothing amounted to the pain of two things. Removed tonsils as an adult and a tooth abscess. Tonsils sucked fucking ass after the drugs wore off. I had liquid Percocet but it just barely masked it. But the tooth abscess. Dear God. My whole jaw swelled up. The pain just throbbed in my head over and over. It was so goddamn bad. Frick that tooth. When I was 14 I went to summer camp, and that year a crazy norovirus ripped through the camp. I was lucky, and didn't get sick, while I was there. However, when my parents picked me up we stopped on the way home, to go out to dinner, and I ate a giant cheeseburger. Flash forward a few hours, and I'm at home. Stomach rumbling. Within minutes I'm projectile vomiting. I get into the bathroom to puke, and simultaneously shit my pants. I spent the night either sitting on the toilet chumming into a bucket, or laying on the floor of the bathroom in the fetal position, ready to resume shitting and puking. It lasted into the afternoon of the next day. My esophagus was on fire. I had burst blood vessels in my face from straining so hard while vomiting. My asshole was so angry. One point while I laid on the floor and the family turned up the TV, so they couldn't hear my praying to the porcelain god, I actually accepted that death would be a relief. The outbreak was so bad that they actually closed the camp for the rest of the summer. I did a study for pain medication. They removed 4 impacted wisdom teeth, just gas and shots / not put under, and then waited for it all to wear off. Then they gave me the pain medication. Except I received the placebo, and I couldn't be given anything for the pain until 2 hours had passed. They came into the room every 10 minutes asking my pain level 1 to 10. I cried and screamed and begged them to give me some real medication. By far the worst pain of my life. I earned that $400 I received from the study. Several years ago I suddenly woke up in excruciating pain in my abdomen. Proceeded to vomit on my way to the bathroom. Had explosive diarrhea. Couldn't stop puking, even after it was just green bile. It was the worst pain I've ever been in, and to this day I have no idea what it was. I tried going to a clinic, and they thought I was drug seeking, because I kept getting hot and cold flashes that made me feel like I was constantly on the verge of fainting, and I guess it looked like nodding. My mom and boyfriend had taken me, and they drove me home. Eventually I just passed out sobbing in bed, and when I woke up about 10 hours later the pain was gone. I have a higher than usual pain tolerance. I had my tonsils and uvula taken out, and it didn't hurt as bad as that day, and a lot of people say that recovery was their worst pain. Getting hit by a car as a pedestrian on the freeway. I was a pedestrian because I was helping a driver out of his car that he just flipped when a second driver lost control in the same place and plowed into us. Injuries: broken sternum, left collarbone, and my #1 and #2 ribs on my left side. And I got stitches on my left index finger. First time getting stitches. I was told to hug / squeeze a pillow against my chest whenever I had to cough, sneeze, or bear down to poo. The pillow hug helped offset the pressure built up internally to accomplish said tasks. Yes, I had a poo pillow. Honestly, probably the mental / emotional distress of being admitted to a mental health facility for the first time. My depression / anxiety had hit an all-time high, and I was inches away from a suicide attempt. Not trying to discourage anyone from getting help, most of it was due to the mental state I was already in. I came out more stable, and I certainly don't regret it, but it was scary for the first couple of days. I thought God had abandoned me, and it was the loneliest, most desolate feeling I've ever experienced. Thankfully, I soon realized that was not the case. Physically, I inherited weak / loose joints, and if I step at a weird angle, my kneecaps will sometimes slip out of place and jolt back in, like a brief dislocation. That's especially painful when you're putting all your weight into that leg. Thankfully, I've been exercising a lot over the last few months, and my knees have gotten much better. I have trigeminal neuralgia, a chronic pain condition that affects the nerve in my face, left side. It causes intense pain across my face, kind of like a really bad toothache, along with a sort of intense electric zapping feeling, and cluster headaches. It hurts a lot. There's a reason it used to be called a suicide disease. Every time I have a bad attack, it's like the worst pain I've ever felt. Bad attacks don't happen too often anymore, thanks to medication, but I've been warned that the medication may stop being effective as the condition progresses. Yay me. Pancreatitis. Feels like your guts are on fire, and there's nothing you can do about it. Hospital was giving me 2 milligrams of Dilaudid every 4 hours. Nurse said it was the same they give to people who have been stabbed. Basically I would pass out for about 3 hours and slowly return to consciousness for an hour and my insides would start feeling like they were burning again. Then repeat. All day every day for about 2 weeks. Basically what happens is a gallstone gets lodged in the common bile duct and pancreatic acids bound for the intestines are backing up into the pancreas. The enzymes activate and the pancreas starts to digest itself. Those were bad times for me. 2 surgeries later, and I'm all good, but nearly died from anesthesia during one of the procedures. Physically, healing after giving birth. My daughter got stuck, shoulder dystocia, and they cut me all the way down to my asshole, and then sideways too. I apparently have very narrow hips, and she was a chunker at 8 pounds 2 ounces. I had the epidural, so I didn't feel too much at the actual time of giving birth, but I felt those stitches going in. Took 6 months to heal, 6 months of walking, bathing, using the bathroom, etc. Things we do every day, because we have to. The pain was horrible. I bled heavily for a month after birth while waddling around, and bursting into tears every time I had to go up or down the stairs. I want to say never again, but the baby fever has hit me again hard just recently. Emotionally, handing over my 3-month-old baby to a nurse for surgery. My knees went weak and my husband barely had time to catch me. I couldn't hold back, and I guess maybe now I feel a bit embarrassed, but emotions were so high back then. She had to have a major surgery to take healthy nerves from her leg and place them in her arm/neck area, brachial plexus, so she could regain some function in her left arm. I let out this guttural primal cry that I don't think I could ever make again. Seeing my tiny little human get carried off like that, it fucking broke me. She stared at me with her big brown eyes the whole way into the OR. She trusted me more than anyone else to take care of her, and I handed her off to strangers who would shove tubes in her face and cut her open. I felt so guilty. I was so overcome with emotion. Even as I write this I'm sobbing. The next 8 hours were the worst in my entire life. I kept sobbing, throwing up, shaking. Pretty sure I have PTSD from her traumatic childbirth and her surgery day. TL. Doctor, getting cut wide open to give birth. Daughter got stuck. She sustained major nerve injury and needed surgery. Mentally and physically fucked me up. I was hit by a pickup truck as a pedestrian. Ended up with a femoral fracture, some damage to the hip, and most pertinent blood on the brain. They put my leg back together with a metal plate on the femur. Therapists and hospital staff knew it would be hard for me to transition from a walker to crutches because of the head trauma, but strongly recommended I try in a safe way. 4 days after the accident, it was Christmas Eve, and me being a 10-year-old filled with Tylenol 3s, codeine which may as well be Noxy to a 10-year-old. I wanted to surprise my mom by walking out to dinner on my crutches, not my walker. Not 2 steps in I fell and was immediately in agony. I was brought to the doctors the day after Christmas, 2 days after the fall, where an x-ray was taken and confirmed the plate was bent to a 45-degree angle inside my leg. I tell my colleagues and friends that everyone has that one experience that defines pain for them. That's mine. Losing my grandpa. He was my favorite person, my fishing buddy, and a best friend. He had heart trouble all his life, but pressed on. After my grandma passed, I wasn't sure how he would do, but he moved on with a nice lady in the assisted living place he lived at and seemed happy. I had a renewed sense of hope, but then I got a call from my parents that said my grandpa wanted to pass. I rushed home from work, packed quickly and drove the 2 hours to the hospital. He decided to turn off his pacemaker and stop taking his meds, which meant that he would likely pass quickly. Our entire family gathered around him, sharing stories and smiles and I love yous. It got to my turn, and he squeezed my hand and let me know that I was always his favorite. I stayed at the hospital every day. He soon lost consciousness, his organs shut down. Finally, after a week, my job asked me to come back. On the morning I was to leave and go back to work, he passed. I think he didn't want me to be there when he left. But it didn't make it any easier. I cried every day for 6 months. And I still cry when I think about it. Even though 8 years have passed, I'll always be his girl.